47 warriors stood in Building 7's medical bay, watching one woman get destroyed. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez slammed his fist on the metal table like a gunshot. "You think you can tell Navy SEALs how to do our job?" Every eye locked on Amanda Parker in gray scrubs. The sound of 47 pairs of boots shifting on concrete echoed through the sterile space. Nobody moved to defend her. Nobody spoke. The silence tasted like blood and diesel fuel. "Medic thinks she's special operations." Rodriguez's voice dripped contempt through the sterile air. Harsh laughter exploded from the crowd like automatic weapons fire. Amanda stood motionless, breathing steady, controlled, too controlled. While grown warriors mocked her credentials, she checked corners with peripheral vision. Her hands stayed loose at her sides, not like a scared civilian cowering from bullies, like someone waiting for enemy contact. Rodriguez grabbed the trauma kit to demonstrate proper handling techniques. Amanda's green eyes tracked his grip, wrong angle, civilian hold. Chief Petty Officer Matthews noticed something else disturbing: the woman's stance. Feet positioned for rapid movement, weight distributed tactical. He'd seen that exact positioning before in Fallujah, from operators. His mouth opened slightly in recognition, but he said nothing. Something wasn't adding up about this medical contractor. Rodriguez accidentally knocked a surgical scalpel off the table, straight toward Amanda's face. Without conscious thought, she caught it blade down, perfect grip, finger placement textbook precision. The room went dead silent. That wasn't a lucky catch or quick reflexes. That was pure muscle memory, trained responses. Several Marines exchanged meaningful glances across the bay. Rodriguez's confident smile faded into uncertainty. "Interesting technique for a civilian nurse." The tactical radio crackled to life with static. "Base, this is Reaper 7. We have problem." "Say again, we have serious problem." Amanda's eyes snapped to the communication panel. Her face went pale, not from fear of violence, from recognition of voices. She knew that call sign. She knew what was coming next. And she was the only person in that medical bay who understood they were all about to die. The morning had started like every other at Joint Operating Base Alpha. Amanda Parker arrived at the medical facility at 0530 hours, same as always. Her light brown hair was pulled back in a tight bun, a few loose curls framing her face. The gray t-shirt and dark military pants made her blend into the background, exactly as she preferred. She moved through the corridors with quiet efficiency, checking supply inventories and updating patient charts. But today felt different. The prisoner they'd brought in yesterday kept nagging at her thoughts. Something about his blood work didn't match the profile of local militia. The titanium implants were too sophisticated. The chemical markers suggested advanced medical treatment, the kind only elite military units received. "Morning, Amanda." Petty Officer Stevens nodded as he passed her station. He was one of the few who treated her with basic respect. Most of the others saw her as just another contractor, useful but forgettable. "Good morning, Mike." Amanda finished organizing her trauma supplies, each piece in perfect order. Years of habit died hard. "The SEAL team heading out today. I need to brief them on medical protocols for the area of operations." Stevens raised an eyebrow. "You know Rodriguez won't want to hear that. He thinks contractors should stay in their lane." "Then maybe Rodriguez needs to learn that his lane might get his team killed." The words came out sharper than Amanda intended. Stevens looked surprised at her tone. The medical bay filled with voices as SEAL Team 7 entered for their pre-mission brief. Rodriguez led the group, his presence commanding attention. 6'3" of muscle and attitude, with a shaved head that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. His blue military t-shirt stretched across his chest, emphasizing his physical dominance. "Listen up, boys," Rodriguez's voice carried across the room. "Standard patrol, nothing fancy. Intelligence says we're dealing with local farmers with old weapons. Should be back for chow." Amanda stepped forward. "Staff Sergeant, I need to discuss the medical intelligence from yesterday's prisoner." Rodriguez turned slowly, his expression shifting to irritation. "Excuse me? The blood samples from the captured combatant show markers inconsistent with local militia. I believe you may be facing more sophisticated opponents than intelligence suggests." Laughter rippled through the assembled SEALs. Rodriguez's smile was cold. "Ma'am, with all due respect, you're a medic. We're the ones who do the fighting." "I understand that, Staff Sergeant, but the prisoner's implants and vaccine markers suggest..." "Suggest what exactly?" Rodriguez stepped closer, using his size to intimidate. "That you know better than naval intelligence?" Amanda held her ground. Her breathing remained steady despite the obvious threat display. I'm suggesting that professional soldiers might require different tactical considerations than farmers. Chief Matthews watched the exchange with growing unease. Something about Amanda's posture reminded him of other operators he'd known. The way she stood, the way she held her hands, it was familiar in a way that made him uncomfortable. Professional soldiers? Rodriguez laughed. Lady, you process paperwork and hand out band-aids. Leave the tactical assessments to the professionals. The crowd of onlookers grew as word spread through the medical bay. Marines, support serve, and other contractors gathered to watch the confrontation. Amanda found herself surrounded by 47 pairs of eyes, all watching her get dressed down by the SEAL team leader. I've processed biological samples that indicate Russian enhancement protocols, Amanda said quietly. The prisoner has titanium bone reinforcement and chemical markers from advanced military medical programs. This isn't random intelligence, it's hard evidence. Rodriguez's face reddened. Are you seriously trying to lecture me about combat operations? You think reading some lab reports makes you qualified to advise Navy SEALs? I think ignoring intelligence makes anyone qualified to get killed. Amanda's voice remained level, but something in her tone made several observers shift uncomfortably. There was steel beneath the surface. That's enough. Rodriguez slammed his hand on the medical table, making the instruments jump. You're a civilian contractor. You don't get to question military operations. You don't get to play soldier. Stay in your lane. The medical bay erupted in nervous laughter and murmured comments. Amanda stood in the center of it all, isolated and outnumbered, but instead of backing down, she began reorganizing her trauma kit with precise movements. Each tool had a specific place, each supply arranged with military efficiency. Chief Matthews noticed her technique. The way she handled the equipment wasn't civilian, it was practiced, professional. He'd seen medics work before, but this was different. This was someone who had used these tools under fire. You know what your problem is? Rodriguez continued, emboldened by the audience. You think watching medical shows and reading reports makes you understand combat. Real war isn't something you learn from books. Amanda looked up from her kit. You're right about that, Staff Sergeant. Something in her tone made the room quiet slightly. There was an edge to her voice that hadn't been there before. Combat medicine isn't something you learn from books. It's something you learn when your teammates are bleeding out and the nearest hospital is 50 miles away. It's something you learn when enemy fire is coming in and you have to choose between cover and casualties. It's something you learn when you're the only thing standing between a good soldier and a body bag. The medical bay had gone completely silent. Amanda's hands never stopped moving as she spoke, arranging supplies with unconscious precision. Her breathing pattern had changed. Deeper, more controlled, combat breathing. Rodriguez sensed he was losing control of the situation. Spare me the war movie dialogue. You're a contractor who processes paperwork. That's it. Amanda finished with her kit and stood up. For the first time, Chief Matthews got a good look at her stance. Feet shoulder-width apart, weight on the balls of her feet, ready for movement in any direction. That was a combat stance. That was an operator's stance. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, Amanda's voice carried across the room with quiet authority. I'm requesting that you review the prisoner intelligence before proceeding with your mission. The biological markers indicate you may be facing enhanced combatants with professional training. Enhanced combatants? Rodriguez laughed. What is this, science fiction? These are farmers with rusty weapons. These are soldiers with titanium bone reinforcement, advanced combat medical training, and biological markers consistent with Russian Spetsnaz protocols. Amanda's words cut through the laughter like a blade. The vaccine markers alone indicate exposure to biological warfare agents that aren't available to civilian populations. The laughter died away. Several of the SEALs exchanged glances. Amanda knew things that civilians weren't supposed to know. Captain Wong appeared in the doorway of the medical bay, drawn by the commotion. Her face was carefully neutral, but her eyes focused immediately on Amanda. Something passed between the two women, a look of recognition that lasted only a moment. Is there a problem here? Captain Wong asked. Rodriguez straightened. No, ma'am. Just explaining to the contractor that medical personnel should focus on medical matters. Wong's gaze shifted to Amanda. And what medical matters are we discussing? The prisoner's blood work indicates professional military enhancement, Amanda said. I believe the SEAL team should be briefed on the possibility of facing elite opponents rather than local militia. Wong nodded slowly. That's thorough analysis for a medical contractor. There was something in Wong's tone that made Rodriguez frown, like she was choosing her words very carefully. "Ma'am, with respect, I don't think we need medical advice on tactical operations," Rodriguez said. "Perhaps not," Wong replied, "but we should always consider all available intelligence." She looked directly at Amanda. "Ms. Parker, could you provide a written assessment of your findings?" Amanda nodded. "Of course, Captain." Rodriguez's jaw tightened. He was being undermined by his own chain of command, and he didn't like it. "Ma'am, we have a mission timeline to maintain." "Understood, Staff Sergeant. Proceed with your preparations. Ms. Parker will have her assessment ready before you depart." Wong left without another word, but not before giving Amanda another meaningful look. Amanda returned to her work, ignoring the hostile stares from the SEAL team. Rodriguez wasn't finished. He stepped closer to Amanda's workstation, crowding her space. "Listen, sweetheart. I don't know what game you're playing, but it ends now. You're nobody. You're a contractor who fills out forms. Don't pretend to be something you're not." Amanda looked up at him. Her green eyes were calm, almost serene. "I'm not pretending to be anything, Staff Sergeant. I'm exactly what I appear to be. A wannabe soldier? A person who's trying to keep you alive." Rodriguez grabbed a piece of medical equipment from her kit, a field surgical clamp, and held it incorrectly, like a civilian who had never used such tools. "This is how real operators handle equipment," he said mockingly. Amanda's eyes tracked his grip automatically. Wrong angle, thumb placement incorrect, potential for slippage under stress. She'd seen that mistake before, usually right before someone got hurt. "That grip will fail under pressure," she said quietly. Rodriguez laughed. "Now you're going to teach me how to hold medical equipment? I'm telling you, that grip will get someone killed." "Really?" Rodriguez deliberately loosened his hold on the clamp, letting it slip slightly. "Seems fine to me." Amanda moved without thinking. Her hand shot out and corrected his grip in one smooth motion, adjusting his thumb placement and finger positioning. The movement was pure muscle memory, professional, efficient, perfect. The bay went silent again. That wasn't a lucky correction. That was trained response. Amanda realized what she'd done and stepped back, but the damage was already done. Everyone had seen the smoothness of the movement, the professional precision. Chief Matthews stared at her hands. Those were operator hands, calloused in specific places, small scars from field work, muscle memory that came from years of practice under stress. Rodriguez pulled the clamp away from her. "Interesting technique for a civilian." Before Amanda could respond, the radio crackled to life. Static filled the air, then a voice came through clear and urgent. "Base, this is Reaper 7. We have problem. Say again, we have serious problem." Amanda's head snapped toward the communication panel. Her face went pale, but not from fear, from recognition. She knew that voice. She knew that call sign, and she knew exactly what kind of problem Reaper 7 was facing, because she'd faced the same problem before, 3 years ago, in Ukraine, when her entire team had walked into a Spetsnaz ambush and only she had walked out. The radio crackled again. "Base, Reaper 7, taking effective fire from multiple positions. These aren't farmers. Repeat, these are not farmers." Rodriguez grabbed the radio. "Reaper 7, this is Base. What's your situation?" "Base, we're in a coordinated ambush. Professional tactics, overlapping fields of fire. We have casualties and limited ammunition. Request immediate support." The medical bay erupted in activity. Medical personnel began preparing for casualties, while communication specialists worked to coordinate support. Amanda stood frozen, her mind processing information that nobody else in the room understood. She knew the voice on the radio, Petty Officer Jackson, Reaper 7's medic. She'd worked with him on a classified operation 2 years ago, before she'd left the service, before she'd tried to disappear into civilian life, but more importantly, she recognized the tactical situation, the coordinated ambush, the professional fire discipline. This was exactly what she'd tried to warn them about. The prisoners weren't local militia, they were Spetsnaz, and now a SEAL team was walking into the same kind of trap that had killed her entire squad in Eastern Europe. Captain Wong burst into the medical bay. "Status report." "SEAL Team 7 is under attack," Rodriguez reported. "They're requesting immediate support." Wong's eyes found Amanda in the crowd. "Ms. Parker, your assessment of the prisoner intelligence." Amanda stepped forward. Her voice was steady, but Chief Matthews noticed her breathing had changed again. Deeper, more controlled. Combat breathing. Captain, the biological markers I found are consistent with Russian Spetsnaz enhancement protocols. The titanium implants are military grade, designed for operators who expect to take significant physical stress. The vaccine markers indicate exposure to biological warfare agents that require high-level clearance to even know about. English, please, Rodriguez snapped. Your team is facing Russian Special Forces operators, not local militia. They're trained professionals with enhanced physical capabilities and access to advanced medical technology. Wong nodded grimly. Can you provide tactical recommendations? Amanda hesitated. Providing tactical recommendations wasn't something medical contractors did. It was something military advisors did, something operators did. Ma'am, I can provide medical analysis of enemy capabilities, but tactical recommendations should come from qualified personnel. Consider yourself qualified, Wong said. What do you recommend? Rodriguez stepped forward. Ma'am, with respect, a medical contractor isn't qualified to provide tactical advice to Navy SEALs. Wong's expression hardened. Staff Sergeant, your team is pinned down by enemies that this medical contractor correctly identified while your intelligence failed. I suggest you listen to what she has to say. Amanda looked at the tactical display showing the area where Reaper 7 had gone silent. She recognized the terrain from her previous deployment. Open ground with limited cover, perfect for an L-shaped ambush. Classic Spetsnaz tactics. The terrain favors a coordinated ambush with multiple firing positions, she said. Spetsnaz doctrine calls for a primary kill zone with secondary positions to prevent extraction. They'll have positioned marksmen to control the high ground and machine gun teams to suppress movement. How do you know Spetsnaz doctrine? Rodriguez demanded. Amanda met his gaze. I read intelligence reports very thoroughly. Wong was studying her carefully. Continue with your assessment. Immediate air support won't be effective due to the forest canopy. Close air support risks friendly fire with the teams so close together. The best option is a flanking movement by qualified personnel who understand Spetsnaz tactics. And who would those qualified personnel be? Wong asked. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. Ma'am, I can only provide intelligence analysis. Tactical decisions are above my pay grade. The radio crackled again. Base, Reaper 7, we're down to our last magazine. Enemy is advancing on our position. We need help now. Rodriguez grabbed his gear. Ma'am, request permission to lead a relief force. Denied, Wong said immediately. You're not qualified for counter-Spetsnaz operations. Then who is? Wong looked directly at Amanda. Ms. Parker, I need you to prepare a detailed briefing on Spetsnaz tactics for our response team. Ma'am, I'm medical personnel. I don't have training in tactical briefings. Then consider this on-the-job training. Conference room, 5 minutes. Wong left the medical bay, but not before giving Amanda a look that conveyed more information than words ever could. Amanda recognized that look. It was the same look Wong had given her 3 years ago when they had worked together on classified operations in Eastern Europe. Rodriguez stared at Amanda with undisguised suspicion. What the hell is going on here? Amanda began collecting specific files from her workstation. Medical reports, prisoner intelligence, biological analysis, but also topographical maps and tactical assessments that medical contractors weren't supposed to have access to. Chief Matthews watched her movements. Professional, efficient, purposeful. Those weren't the movements of someone improvising. Those were the movements of someone who'd done this before. Ma'am, Matthews said quietly, I don't mean to pry, but your tactical knowledge seems pretty comprehensive for medical personnel. Amanda looked up at him. Matthews was older, experienced, a lifer who had seen enough combat to recognize competence when he saw it. She could trust him, or at least trust him more than she could trust Rodriguez. Chief, I believe in being thorough in my research. That's very thorough research. Thorough research keeps people alive. Matthews nodded slowly. There was more to this woman than anyone realized, but before he could ask more questions, Amanda was moving toward the conference room, carrying files that contained information way above her supposed clearance level. Rodriguez followed her with his eyes. Something's not right about her. Yeah, Matthews agreed. Question is whether that's good or bad for us. In the conference room, Wong was waiting with several other officers. Amanda entered and set her files on the table with practiced efficiency. The arrangement was tactical, most important information closest to hand, supporting documents in order of priority. Military briefing protocol. Gentlemen, Ms. Parker is going to brief us on enemy capabilities and recommended tactical response, Wong announced. Colonel Harrison, the base commander, looked skeptical. Captain, with respect, shouldn't this briefing come from intelligence specialists? Sir, Ms. Parker has more relevant experience than our current intelligence staff. Amanda stood at the head of the table. This was familiar territory, but dangerous territory. Briefing tactical operations wasn't something medical contractors did. It was something operators did. Gentlemen, based on the biological analysis of captured personnel and current tactical situation, I assess that Reaper 7 is facing a Spetsnaz team of approximately 8 to 12 operators. She spread a topographical map on the table, marking positions with practiced efficiency. The terrain favors an L-shaped ambush with primary killing zone here, secondary positions here and here for extraction prevention, and overwatch positions on this ridgeline. Colonel Harrison leaned forward. This is very detailed analysis. Sir, Spetsnaz tactics are well documented in available intelligence sources. Wong watched Amanda work, recognizing the professional competence that civilian contractors weren't supposed to have. Amanda was moving with the confidence of someone who'd briefed tactical operations before, multiple times. Recommended response? Colonel Harrison asked. Amanda pointed to the map. Direct assault will fail due to prepared positions and superior fields of fire. Air support is ineffective due to canopy and proximity to friendly forces. The most effective approach is a flanking movement from the east, utilizing this creek bed for concealment, with a simultaneous distraction from the west to draw fire away from the primary assault. That's a very sophisticated tactical plan, Rodriguez observed suspiciously. It's basic military tactics applied to known terrain and enemy capabilities. How do you know the terrain? Amanda hesitated for just a moment. Topographical analysis based on available maps and geographic intelligence. Wong stepped in. Ms. Parker, what personnel requirements would such an operation need? Ma'am, you'd need operators trained in counter-Spetsnaz tactics with experience in close-quarter combat and forest warfare. Preferably personnel who understand Russian tactical doctrine and have worked against similar opponents before. And where would we find such personnel? Amanda looked directly at Wong. They both knew the answer to that question. There was only one person currently on the base who had that specific experience, but acknowledging that would require acknowledging things that were supposed to stay buried. Ma'am, that would be a command decision above my level. Colonel Harrison studied the tactical plan. It was professional-grade work, the kind of operational planning that came from years of experience. Ms. Parker, your analysis is extremely detailed. What's your background in tactical operations? Sir, I have extensive experience in combat medicine, which requires understanding tactical situations to provide effective care. This goes beyond medical knowledge, Wong interrupted. Sir, Ms. Parker has been very thorough in her research. Her analysis appears sound. The radio crackled from the communications panel. Base, Reaper 7, enemy is moving to overrun our position. We're out of options. If anyone's coming, it needs to be now. The room went quiet. Time was running out, and they needed a decision. Colonel Harrison looked at the tactical plan, then at Amanda. Miss Parker, in your professional opinion, what are the chances of success for the operation you have outlined? Amanda calculated quickly. Terrain factors, enemy capabilities, available friendly forces, time constraints. It was a complex equation with too many variables. Sir, with qualified personnel and proper execution, I'd estimate 65% chance of successful extraction with minimal friendly casualties. And without qualified personnel? Less than 20%, Rodriguez stepped forward. Sir, I can lead the relief force. We don't need to rely on theoretical tactics from medical personnel. Wong shook her head. Staff Sergeant, you've already demonstrated that you don't understand the enemy capabilities. Your team is pinned down because you underestimated the threat. Ma'am, that's not fair. Intelligence failure isn't our fault. No, but tactical failure will be. Amanda watched the debate with growing concern. Every minute they spent arguing was another minute Reaper 7 spent dying in the jungle. She knew exactly what they were facing because she'd faced it before. She knew exactly what needed to be done because she'd done it before. But doing it would require revealing things that were supposed to stay hidden. It would require admitting that Amanda Parker, medical contractor, didn't exist. That she was actually Gunnery Sergeant Amanda Parker, Scout Sniper, call sign Ghost 7, with 47 confirmed kills against Russian special forces. The radio crackled again. Base, this is Reaper 7, taking heavy casualties. Request immediate medical support for critical wounded. Amanda's professional instincts overrode her personal security. There were wounded Marines in the jungle, and that meant her medical oath superseded everything else. Sir, I need to respond to that medical emergency. Colonel Harrison nodded. Of course. Prepare medical teams for casualty reception. Sir, respectfully, I need to respond to the field. The tactical situation requires forward medical support. Rodriguez laughed. You want to go into a combat zone? You're a civilian contractor. Amanda looked at him steadily. I'm medical personnel responding to casualties. That's my job. Your job is to stay safe behind the lines and treat people when they get back. My job is to save lives wherever lives need saving. Wong studied Amanda carefully. She was volunteering to go into a combat zone against professional killers. Medical contractors didn't volunteer for suicide missions, but operators sometimes did. Ms. Parker, the tactical situation is extremely dangerous. You'd be at significant personal risk. Ma'am, wounded personnel are at greater risk. Medical triage principles apply. Greatest good for the greatest number. Colonel Harrison shook his head. Absolutely not. I'm not sending civilian personnel into an active combat zone. Sir, with respect, medical personnel have a duty to respond to casualties regardless of tactical situation. Not when the tactical situation is a death sentence. Amanda looked at the map again. She knew that terrain. She knew those tactics. She knew exactly how to reach Reaper 7 and extract them safely. But explaining how she knew would require explanations she wasn't ready to give. The radio crackled once more. Base Reaper 7, we have multiple urgent casualties. If medical doesn't reach us soon, we're going to lose people. Amanda stood up from the table. Sir, request permission to prepare medical supplies for forward deployment. Denied. Sir, those Marines are going to die without immediate medical intervention. And you're going to die if you try to reach them. Amanda looked around the room at the assembled officers. They were good people trying to make impossible decisions with incomplete information. But they were making those decisions based on what they thought she was, not what she actually was. Captain Wong caught her eye and nodded slightly. It was a small gesture, but Amanda understood. Wong knew who she really was, and Wong was telling her that sometimes cover identities had to be sacrificed for mission success. Sir, Amanda said quietly, I have relevant experience for this type of operation. What kind of relevant experience? Combat experience, sir. The room went quiet. Colonel Harrison studied her carefully. Ms. Parker, your personnel file indicates you're a civilian medical contractor with no military background. Sir, some personnel files are incomplete. Wong stepped forward. Colonel, I request permission to speak with Ms. Parker privately. Captain, we don't have time for private conversations. We have a SEAL team dying in the jungle. Sir, the private conversation might provide information relevant to the tactical situation. Harrison looked between Wong and Amanda. There were undercurrents here that he didn't understand, but he'd been in the military long enough to recognize when classified information was being discussed in civilian-friendly code. 5 minutes, he said. Wong and Amanda stepped into an adjoining office. The moment the door closed, Wong's entire demeanor changed. Ghost 7. Amanda closed her eyes. Her cover was blown. 3 years of carefully constructed civilian identity, gone in 2 words. Hello, Captain Wong. I thought you were dead. The reports from Ukraine said the entire team was KIA. The entire team was KIA. I was listed as missing, presumed dead. I prefer to keep it that way. Wong nodded. That's why you're using a civilian identity. I wanted out. I wanted to save lives instead of taking them. How's that working out for you? Amanda looked through the window at the tactical display showing Reaper 7's last known position. Not well, apparently. We need you, Amanda. Those SEALs are facing the same Spetsnaz team you fought in Ukraine. You're the only person on this base who knows how to beat them. I'm not that person anymore. You're exactly that person. You always will be. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. Outside, she could hear the radio chatter from Reaper 7 getting more desperate, more urgent, more final. If I do this, my cover is blown permanently. If you don't do this, 8 Marines die. 12 Marines, Amanda corrected automatically. Reaper 7 is a 12-man team with 4-man overwatch. Wong smiled grimly. See, you're already thinking like Ghost 7 again. Amanda looked at her hands. Medical hands now. instead of weapon hands, but underneath the civilian calluses were older calluses from rifle grips and rope work. You could change your job, but you couldn't change what you'd been trained to be. What's the plan? You brief the tactical situation honestly. You tell them what you really know about Spetsnaz operations, and then you lead the relief force. Wong, I'm not qualified to lead relief forces anymore. I've been out for 3 years. Like riding a bicycle. Like riding a bicycle into a wood chipper. The radio crackled from the main room. Base, Reaper 7, we're down to our last magazine. Enemy is preparing final assault. If anyone's coming, it needs to be right now. Amanda opened the door and walked back into the conference room. Colonel Harrison looked at her expectantly. Sir, I need to amend my previous statements about my qualifications. Go ahead. Amanda took a deep breath. Once she said this, there would be no going back to her quiet civilian life. No more hiding behind medical charts and supply inventories. No more pretending to be someone she wasn't. Sir, my name is Gunnery Sergeant Amanda Parker, United States Marine Corps, call sign Ghost 7. I'm a scout sniper with combat experience against Russian Spetsnaz forces. I've been operating under civilian cover for the past 3 years, but my military status remains active classified. The room went completely silent. Rodriguez stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Matthews nodded slowly. It explained everything he'd noticed about her. Colonel Harrison leaned back in his chair. Holy cow. Sir, I have direct experience with the tactical situation Reaper 7 is facing. I know Spetsnaz doctrine, I know their capabilities, and I know how to beat them. What do you need? Amanda looked at the tactical display. Time, equipment, personnel, the same equation she'd calculated dozens of times in hostile territory. Sir, I need access to my personal equipment cache, a 4-man support team with counter-sniper training, and authorization to engage enemy targets at my discretion. Personal equipment cache, Wong answered. Sir, Ghost 7 maintains operational equipment for emergency deployment. It's part of her classified status. Where is this equipment? Amanda looked uncomfortable. Sir, it's cached approximately 2 clicks east of the base perimeter. The cache includes specialized weapons, communications equipment, and tactical gear appropriate for counter-Spetsnaz operations. Rodriguez found his voice. You've been keeping weapons cached near our base? I've been maintaining operational readiness in accordance with my classified orders. Colonel Harrison processed this information. A classified Marine sniper had been operating under civilian cover on his base for 3 years, maintaining secret weapons caches and providing medical support. It was either the most elaborate security breach in military history or the most sophisticated cover operation. Captain Wong, can you verify her story? Sir, I can verify that Ghost 7 is a legitimate operator with appropriate clearances and mission-essential capabilities for the current tactical situation. That's not exactly a direct answer. Sir, it's the most direct answer I'm authorized to give at this classification level. The radio interrupted their conversation. Base Reaper 7, taking heavy fire. We have multiple casualties. This is our final transmission. Amanda stepped forward. Sir, we're out of time. I need immediate authorization to respond, or we're going to lose that entire team. Colonel Harrison looked at her for a long moment. 3 years ago, she'd been a classified operator with a track record of success against exactly this type of enemy. Now she was a medical contractor, asking permission to walk into a suicide mission. Authorized. What do you need? Amanda moved to the tactical display and began marking positions with the confidence of someone who'd done this many times before. I need a distraction team here to draw fire from the main ambush position. Support team here to provide overwatch and communications. And I need a clear path to this position where I can establish sniper support for the extraction. What about medical support for the casualties? Sir, I'll provide medical support after I eliminate the immediate threat. Combat medicine protocol, neutralize the threat, then treat the wounded. Rodriguez stepped forward. Ma'am, request permission to lead the support team. Amanda looked at him. The same man who'd been humiliating her 20 minutes ago was now volunteering to follow her into a combat zone. Military dynamics were strange sometimes. Staff Sergeant, do you have experience with counter-sniper operations? No, ma'am. Then you're not qualified for this mission. Rodriguez's face reddened. Ma'am, I'm a Navy SEAL. I'm qualified for any mission. You're a Navy SEAL who walked his team into a Spetsnaz ambush because you refused to listen to intelligence. You're not qualified for this mission. Wong intervened. Ghost 7, we need to work with available personnel. Amanda studied Rodriguez carefully. Greed, aggression, physical capability. He could be useful if properly directed. Staff Sergeant, are you willing to follow orders without question? Ma'am, I follow orders from qualified personnel. I'm qualified personnel. Are you willing to follow my orders without question? Rodriguez hesitated. Taking orders from someone he had been mocking minutes earlier was a hard pill to swallow. Ma'am, yes ma'am. Good, you're on Overwatch. Chief Matthews, your communications. I need 2 more personnel with marksman qualifications. Wong consulted a personnel roster. We have Corporal Jackson and Lance Corporal Martinez available. Excellent. Brief them on the mission parameters while I retrieve my equipment. Amanda headed for the door, but Colonel Harrison stopped her. Gunnery Sergeant Parker, sir? For the record, your cover identity was excellent. I had no idea. Sir, the best covers are the ones where you're mostly just being yourself. And what part was yourself? Amanda paused at the door. The part that wanted to save lives instead of taking them, sir. She left the conference room and headed for the motor pool. Her equipment cache was buried in a waterproof container 2 kilometers into the jungle. GPS coordinates memorized, contents maintained and updated every 6 months. Weapons, ammunition, communications gear, medical supplies, and other tools of her former trade. Rodriguez caught up with her in the corridor. Ma'am, I need to say something. Amanda kept walking. Save it for after we extract the team, Staff Sergeant. Ma'am, I was wrong about you. Yes, you were. I apologize for my unprofessional conduct. Amanda stopped and turned to face him. Staff Sergeant, your apology is noted. But right now, 8 Marines are dying in the jungle because you didn't listen to intelligence. We can discuss your conduct issues after we bring them home. Rodriguez nodded. Ma'am, what do you need from me? I need you to forget everything you think you know about combat and follow my orders exactly. Spetsnaz aren't Taliban fighters or Iraqi insurgents. They're professional killers with advanced training and superior equipment. If you freelance or try to be heroic, you'll get everyone killed. Understood, ma'am? Amanda reached the motor pool and grabbed an ATV. Staff Sergeant, tell me what you know about counter-sniper operations. Ma'am, basic principles are concealment, patience, and superior positioning. Wrong. Basic principles are intelligence, surprise, and overwhelming firepower applied at precisely the right moment. Counter-sniper operations aren't about being sneaky. They're about being fast, violent, and absolutely accurate when it counts. She started the ATV and headed for the perimeter gate. Rodriguez followed on another vehicle, processing information that contradicted everything he'd learned about sniper operations. Ma'am, how many Spetsnaz have you fought before? Amanda navigated around a supply convoy. Enough to know their weaknesses. What are their weaknesses? They're overconfident, they rely too heavily on technology, and they always assume they're the most professional force on the battlefield. Are they wrong about that? Amanda smiled grimly. They're about to find out. The cache was exactly where she'd left it, buried beneath a fallen log and covered with natural camouflage. Amanda cleared the concealment and opened the waterproof container with practiced efficiency. Inside were the tools of her former trade. A customized M40A6 sniper rifle with advanced optics and suppressor. Ammunition specially selected for accuracy and penetration. Communications equipment for coordination with supporting elements, medical supplies for field treatment, and other items that civilian contractors weren't supposed to have access to. Amanda assembled her equipment with the smooth efficiency of muscle memory. Every movement was practiced, professional, purposeful. This was what she'd been trained to do, what she'd been good at, what she'd walked away from 3 years ago when her entire team had been killed in Ukraine. Rodriguez watched her work. Ma'am, you seem very comfortable with that equipment. I should be. I've been using variations of this setup for 8 years. How many confirmed kills do you have? Amanda paused in her equipment check. That was a question she had hoped never to answer again. Enough. Ma'am, the team needs to know your capabilities for mission planning. Amanda looked at him directly. Staff Sergeant, I have 47 confirmed kills against various enemy forces, including 12 Spetsnaz operators. Is that sufficient information for mission planning? Rodriguez went quiet. 47 confirmed kills was more than most infantry units accumulated in entire deployments. 12 kills against Spetsnaz was almost unheard of. Ma'am, that's impressive. That's history. Today is about bringing our people home alive. Amanda finished her equipment check and secured her gear. The familiar weight of the rifle, the precise balance of the optics, the smooth operation of the bolt, it all felt like coming home to a house you'd hoped never to see again. Her radio crackled with base communications. Ghost 7, this is base. Reaper 7 has gone silent. No communications for the past 10 minutes. Amanda keyed her radio. Base, Ghost 7, en route to target area, ETA 15 minutes. Ghost 7, be advised that enemy may have overrun friendly positions. Base, understood. Ghost 7 will assess and advise. She started the ATV and headed toward the last known position of Reaper 7. Rodriguez followed, along with the support team Wong had assembled. 4 Marines heading into the jungle to face professional killers who had just eliminated an entire SEAL team. The terrain became more difficult as they approached the target area. Dense forest, limited visibility, perfect conditions for ambush. Amanda stopped the team 1 kilometer from Reaper 7's last known position and switched to foot movement. Radio silence from this point, she whispered. Hand signals only. Rodriguez, you take overwatch position here. Matthews, communications here. Jackson and Martinez, flanking positions here and here. She marked positions on a tactical map, each location chosen for specific tactical advantages. Fields of fire, escape routes, mutual support capabilities. Ma'am, what's your position? Rodriguez asked. Amanda pointed to a ridgeline 800 meters from the enemy position. I'll be providing direct fire support from there. Ma'am, that's awfully close to enemy positions. It's close enough to be effective, far enough to avoid detection, and positioned to provide supporting fire for your positions if things go bad. Rodriguez studied the tactical plan. It was professional-grade work, the kind of operational planning that came from years of experience against sophisticated enemies. Ma'am, what's our rules of engagement? Amanda looked at him steadily. We're engaging enemy forces who have attacked and possibly killed American military personnel. Rules of engagement are simple. Identify targets, engage targets, neutralize threats. What about prisoners? Spetsnaz don't take prisoners, and they don't surrender. This is a kill or be killed situation. Amanda checked her equipment 1 final time and headed toward her position. Moving through dense forest with 40 pounds of equipment required skills she hadn't used in 3 years, but muscle memory proved reliable. Step placement, noise discipline, route selection, all the fundamentals came back quickly. 800 meters took 30 minutes to cover safely. Amanda reached her position and established a hide that provided excellent fields of fire while maintaining concealment from enemy observation. Professional work that would be difficult to detect, even with thermal imaging. Through her scope, she could see the area where Reaper 7 had been ambushed, bodies on the ground, equipment scattered, clear signs of a coordinated attack. But she could also see movement, wounded personnel still alive, taking shelter behind fallen logs and natural cover. Amanda keyed her radio for 1 brief transmission. Base, Ghost 7, have eyes on target area. Confirm wounded friendly personnel still alive. Estimate 6 to 8 enemy positions in coordinated defense. Ghost 7 base, are you able to provide support? Amanda studied the tactical situation through her scope. Enemy positions, fields of fire, escape routes, collateral damage considerations. It was a complex equation with multiple variables. Base, Ghost 7, I can provide effective fire support, but will need coordination with supporting elements for successful extraction. Ghost 7, standing by for your recommendations. Amanda switched to the tactical frequency and contacted her support team. Overwatch, comms, flankers, this is Ghost 7, enemy positions identified and marked. Prepare for coordinated engagement on my signal. Ghost 7, Overwatch, ready. Ghost 7, comms, standing by. Ghost 7, flankers, in position. Amanda centered her scope on the first target, a Spetsnaz sniper in a camouflaged position 300 meters from the wounded SEALs. Professional hide, excellent field of fire, perfect position to prevent extraction attempts. But not quite perfect enough. Amanda controlled her breathing, calculated wind speed and direction, adjusted for range and elevation, all the fundamentals of precision shooting that had kept her alive for 8 years of combat operations. The crosshairs settled on center mass. Amanda took a deep breath, let half of it out, and applied steady pressure to the trigger. The suppressed rifle made only a soft whisper of sound. 300 meters away, the enemy sniper pitched forward and went still. 1 down. 7 to go. Amanda shifted to the second target, another sniper position on the opposite side of the kill zone. Same calculation, same fundamentals, same result. 2 down. The enemy began to react, trying to locate the source of the precise fire that was systematically eliminating their positions. But Amanda had chosen her hide well, and suppressed fire was difficult to locate under the best circumstances. Target 3 was a machine gunner, providing suppressing fire against the wounded SEALs. Center mass shot at 250 meters. The gunner slumped over his weapon. 3 down. Amanda's radio crackled with a transmission from one of the wounded SEALs. Unknown sniper, this is Reaper 7 actual. Appreciate the support. We have multiple wounded and need immediate extraction. Amanda keyed her radio. Reaper 7, this is Ghost 7. Continue to maintain cover. I'm clearing escape routes for your extraction. Ghost 7, Reaper 7, roger that. We're ready to move on your signal. Amanda shifted her scope to target 4, a Spetsnaz operator with a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. High priority target due to area effect capabilities. Slightly more difficult shot due to his position behind heavy cover, but Amanda adjusted her aim point and fired. 4 down. The enemy was definitely reacting now, trying to reposition and locate her hide. But repositioning under fire was difficult, and Amanda was systematically eliminating their most dangerous assets. Target 5 was moving between positions, trying to flank the wounded SEALs. Moving targets required different techniques, leading the target, timing the shot, predicting movement patterns. Amanda tracked him through her scope and fired just as he paused behind a tree. 5 down. All elements, this is Ghost 7. Prepare for extraction support. Enemy numbers significantly reduced. Execute extraction on my signal. Ghost 7 Overwatch, standing by. Ghost 7 comms, ready for extraction coordination. Ghost 7 flankers, moving to support positions. Amanda identified the remaining 3 enemy positions. 2 riflemen providing area denial, and 1 position she couldn't clearly identify but was definitely occupied based on muzzle flashes and movement. The riflemen were easier targets, stationary positions with predictable fields of fire. Amanda engaged them in rapid succession, 2 shots fired 10 seconds apart. 7 down. The final position was more problematic. Whoever was there was professional enough to maintain good concealment and fire discipline. Spetsnaz team leader, possibly, or senior NCO with extensive combat experience. Amanda studied the position through her scope, looking for any hint of movement or exposure. The enemy operator was good, but everyone made mistakes eventually. The key was patience and professional observation. There, a brief reflection from optical equipment, probably a scope or binoculars. Amanda adjusted her aim point and waited for a better opportunity. The enemy operator moved slightly, exposing part of his position as he tried to locate her hide. Amanda fired immediately. 8 down. All elements, this is Ghost 7. Enemy positions neutralized. Begin extraction immediately. Amanda maintained overwatch as Rodriguez and Matthews moved forward to assist the wounded SEALs. Professional medical triage, efficient evacuation procedures, textbook execution under combat conditions. Ghost 7, Overwatch, wounded personnel secured, ready for extraction. Ghost 7, comms, medical evacuation en route, ETA 5 minutes. Amanda kept her scope trained on the extraction area, watching for any signs of additional enemy forces or complications. But the jungle was quiet, except for the sounds of helicopter rotors approaching from the south. Reaper 7, this is Ghost 7. How many casualties do you have? Ghost 7, Reaper 7, 3 urgent surgical, 2 priority, 2 routine. No KIA, thanks to your intervention. Amanda felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. The satisfaction of a successful mission, where everyone went home alive. It was a feeling she'd almost forgotten, buried under the weight of too many missions where not everyone made it back. The medical evacuation helicopter landed in a clearing 200 meters from the extraction site. Amanda watched through her scope as wounded SEALs were loaded onto stretchers and transported to safety. Professional medical care, rapid evacuation, exactly what combat medicine was supposed to accomplish. Ghost 7, this is Reaper 7 actual. We owe you our lives. Thank you. Amanda keyed her radio. Reaper 7, Ghost 7, just doing my job. Ghost 7, that was some impressive shooting. Who the hell are you? Amanda smiled grimly. Someone who's supposed to be saving lives, not taking them. But today, taking lives had been necessary to save lives. It was a paradox she'd struggled with for 3 years, and apparently would continue struggling with for the foreseeable future. Amanda began disassembling her equipment and preparing for extraction. The mission was complete, the wounded were safe, and the immediate threat was neutralized. But the larger implications were just beginning. Her cover was blown. Amanda Parker, medical contractor, no longer existed. Gunnery Sergeant Amanda Parker, scout sniper, was back on active status whether she wanted to be or not. As she packed her rifle, Amanda wondered if 3 years of trying to save lives instead of taking them had changed her at all. Or if once you were a warrior, you were always a warrior, regardless of what job title you tried to hide behind. The helicopter lifted off with the wounded SEALs, and Amanda began the long walk back to base. Back to explanations, debriefings, and decisions about what came next. Rodriguez appeared beside her as she emerged from the forest. "Ma'am, that was the most professional combat operation I've ever seen. Thank you, Staff Sergeant." "Ma'am, I owe you an apology, a real one this time." Amanda looked at him. "Staff Sergeant, you were working with incomplete information. We all make mistakes." "Ma'am, my mistake almost got good Marines killed, but it didn't. They're all going home alive." Rodriguez walked beside her in silence for several minutes. Finally, he spoke again. "Ma'am, what happens now?" Amanda looked ahead toward the base, where Colonel Harrison and Captain Wong were waiting, with questions she wasn't sure she was ready to answer. "Now we find out whether I'm going back to saving lives or taking them." "Ma'am, why can't you do both?" Amanda considered that question as they approached the base perimeter. Maybe Rodriguez was right. Maybe the choice wasn't between being a warrior and being a healer. Maybe the choice was between being effective and being safe. And today had proven that sometimes being effective required being dangerous. As they reached the gate, Amanda made a decision about her future that would change everything. But first, she had a debriefing to attend and explanations to give. The hardest part was over. The wounded were safe, the enemy was neutralized, and the mission was complete. Everything else was just paperwork. The base perimeter appeared through the jungle canopy like a mirage of civilization. Amanda Parker walked beside Staff Sergeant Rodriguez in silence, both processing the events of the past 3 hours. Behind them, Chief Matthews and the support team followed with equipment and gear from the successful extraction operation. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said quietly, "I keep thinking about what you said earlier, about staying in your lane." Amanda adjusted the weight of her rifle case. "What about it, Staff Sergeant? I told you to stay in your lane when you tried to warn us about the Spetsnaz threat, but you weren't in the wrong lane. We were. Everyone was doing their job as they understood it." "No, ma'am. You were doing your job correctly. I was being an arrogant fool who thought rank meant more than competence." Amanda stopped walking and faced him. "Staff Sergeant, competence without humility gets people killed. But humility without competence gets people killed too. The key is knowing which one applies to which situation. How do you tell the difference? Experience. Usually the hard kind." They reached the main gate where military police were waiting, with Colonel Harrison and Captain Wong. Amanda could see additional personnel gathering. Word had spread about the successful rescue mission and the revelation of her true identity. "Gunnery Sergeant Parker," Colonel Harrison said formally, "request permission to conduct immediate operational debriefing." "Sir, permission granted." "Excellent. Conference room Alpha, 15 minutes. Captain Wong will coordinate." As they walked toward the administrative building, Amanda noticed the changed atmosphere on base. Personnel who had ignored her before were now watching her with obvious curiosity and respect. The transformation from invisible contractor to legendary operator had happened in less than 4 hours. "Ma'am," Chief Matthews approached from behind, "the SEALs wanted me to pass along their thanks. All 8 casualties are stable and en route to advanced medical facilities." "That's good news, Chief." "Ma'am, there's something else. The Spetsnaz team you eliminated, intelligence is analyzing their equipment and finding some interesting items." Amanda frowned. "What kind of interesting items?" "Advanced communications gear, modified weapons, and identification documents that suggest this was a reconnaissance mission, not just a harassment operation. They were gathering intelligence on base security and operational procedures. That's what intelligence thinks, which means there might be additional enemy forces in the area." Amanda processed this information as they reached the administrative building. If the Spetsnaz team had been conducting reconnaissance, their mission failure would trigger responses from higher command levels. The tactical situation might be more complex than anyone realized. The conference room filled quickly with personnel from various departments. Colonel Harrison, Captain Wong, intelligence officers, medical staff, and the SEALs who had remained on base. Amanda found herself the center of attention in a way that felt uncomfortably familiar. "Ladies and gentlemen," Colonel Harrison announced, "this debriefing is classified secret. What we discuss here does not leave this room without proper authorization." Amanda took her place at the head of the table, the same position she'd occupied hours earlier when her cover identity was still intact. But now, everyone knew exactly who they were dealing with. "Gunnery Sergeant Parker, please provide a complete operational summary for the record." Amanda opened the tactical folder she'd carried from the field. Professional habit. Always document everything for after-action analysis. "Sir, at approximately 14:30 hours, SEAL Team 7 encountered organized resistance from an estimated 8-man Spetsnaz element in Grid Square 742-986. Team came under coordinated fire from prepared positions, consistent with professional military ambush tactics." She spread tactical maps on the table, marking positions and movement patterns with practiced efficiency. Enemy demonstrated advanced small unit tactics, superior equipment, and training consistent with Russian Special Operations Forces. Biological analysis of captured personnel from previous operations had indicated this probability, but tactical intelligence failed to incorporate medical intelligence into operational planning. Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The critique was professional and factual, but it clearly identified where the mission planning had failed. Upon notification of team contact, I provided tactical analysis and requested permission to conduct relief operations. Due to my specialized experience with counter-Spetsnaz operations, authorization was granted for immediate response. Colonel Harrison leaned forward. "Gunnery Sergeant, for the record, please clarify your specialized experience." Amanda had hoped to avoid this part of the discussion, but operational debriefings required complete honesty. "Sir, I served 3 deployments in Eastern Europe conducting classified operations against Russian Special Forces. Primary mission was interdiction of Wagner Group and Spetsnaz operations in contested territories. Secondary mission was training Allied forces in counter-Russian tactics." "How many operations?" "Sir, over 3 years, approximately 47 separate engagements with various levels of intensity." The room went quiet. 47 engagements against Russian Special Forces was an extraordinary combat record. "Casualties?" Amanda hesitated. This was the part she'd hoped never to discuss again. "Sir, enemy casualties numbered 47 confirmed kills. Friendly casualties included the loss of my entire 12-man team during final operation in Ukraine. I was the sole survivor." Captain Wong spoke up, "which is why Gunnery Sergeant Parker requested transition to civilian status and medical training. She wanted to save lives instead of taking them." Rodriguez raised his hand. "Ma'am, request permission to speak." "Go ahead, Staff Sergeant." "Ma'am, I need to address my conduct during pre-mission briefing. I failed to properly evaluate intelligence provided by qualified personnel, leading to tactical situation that resulted in casualties and required emergency response." Amanda studied Rodriguez carefully. His admission was professional and accurate, but it also represented a significant shift in his attitude. "Staff Sergeant, what specifically do you think went wrong?" "Ma'am, I allowed personal bias against civilian contractors to override proper intelligence analysis. I assumed that rank and service branch were more important than actual knowledge and experience." "And what should you have done differently?" "Ma'am, I should have requested detailed briefing on the intelligence you provided, evaluated the tactical implications, and modified operational planning accordingly." Amanda nodded. "That's a good analysis, Staff Sergeant. What would you do differently in future situations?" "Ma'am, I would treat all intelligence sources with appropriate professional consideration, regardless of the source's apparent rank or status." Colonel Harrison made notes on his legal pad. "Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, your self-assessment is noted for the record. We'll address administrative actions separately." Amanda continued her operational briefing. "Sir, relief operation was conducted with 4-man support team using standard counter-ambush tactics. Enemy positions were eliminated using precision fire from concealed positions, allowing safe extraction of wounded personnel. Casualties from relief operation? Sir, no friendly casualties. 8 enemy KIA confirmed. Outstanding work, Gunnery Sergeant. Amanda closed her tactical folder. Sir, there's one additional concern. Intelligence analysis of enemy equipment suggests this was a reconnaissance operation, not just harassment. The Spetsnaz team was gathering information about base security, operational procedures, and personnel capabilities. What are the implications? Sir, reconnaissance operations are usually followed by larger-scale operations. We may be facing additional enemy activity in the near future. Captain Wong consulted her intelligence summary. Gunnery Sergeant Parker is correct. Preliminary analysis indicates the enemy team had detailed information about our patrol schedules, communication procedures, and response capabilities. Colonel Harrison frowned. How did they obtain that information? Sir, either through extended observation or through compromised communications security. Recommendations? Amanda looked around the room at the assembled personnel. Most of them were good soldiers who would implement whatever security measures were necessary, but implementing security measures required understanding threats that many of them had never faced before. Sir, I recommend enhanced communication security, modified patrol schedules, and expanded perimeter security. I also recommend additional training for personnel who may face similar threats in future operations. What kind of training? Amanda had been afraid this question would come up. Training personnel in counter-Spetsnaz operations would require her to take on roles that went beyond medical support. Sir, training would include threat recognition, tactical countermeasures, and emergency response procedures for coordinated attacks by professional enemy forces. Are you qualified to provide such training? Sir, I have the operational experience, but I'm currently assigned to medical duties. Would you be willing to expand your duties to include tactical training? This was the question Amanda had been dreading. Taking on tactical training responsibilities would mean abandoning her attempts to transition away from combat operations. It would mean acknowledging that she was still, fundamentally, a warrior. Sir, I would need to consider the implications of expanded duties. Colonel Harrison nodded. Understood. We'll discuss assignment modifications after we complete immediate security improvements. The debriefing continued for another hour, covering operational details, equipment performance, and lessons learned. But Amanda's mind was focused on the larger question of what came next. Her cover identity was blown, her civilian life was over, and decisions about her future couldn't be postponed much longer. When the debriefing concluded, Captain Wong approached her privately. Amanda, we need to discuss your status. I figured we would. Your civilian contractor position obviously can't continue, but we have several options for your military status. They walked to Wong's office, which was equipped with secure communications for classified discussions. What kind of options? Wong sat behind her desk and opened a classified folder. Option 1. Return to full active duty with your previous rank and specialization. JSOC has specifically requested your assignment to counterterrorism operations. What's Option 2? Option 2. Transition to advisory role with training responsibilities. You'd remain on active duty, but focus on educating other personnel rather than direct combat operations. And Option 3? Option 3. Medical specialty with tactical consultation as needed. Essentially what you've been doing, but with official recognition and appropriate clearances. Amanda considered the options. Each represented a different balance between her desire to save lives and the military's need for her combat experience. Wong, what's your recommendation? Honestly, I think the military needs people who can bridge combat operations and medical support. Your unique combination of skills is extremely valuable. But I also know what you went through in Ukraine. If you're not ready to return to full combat operations, forcing the issue won't help anyone. Amanda looked out the window at the medical facility where she'd been working for 3 years. Quiet, routine, focused on healing instead of killing. It had been a good life, even if it wasn't entirely honest. How long do I have to decide? 24 hours. After that, personnel decisions will be made for you based on operational requirements. Amanda left Wong's office and walked across the base toward the medical facility. But instead of going inside, she sat on a bench outside and watched the sunset through the jungle canopy. Rodriguez appeared beside her bench 20 minutes later. Ma'am, request permission to speak freely. Go ahead, Staff Sergeant. Ma'am, I've been thinking about leadership and competence and the things you said today. And And I realized that real leadership isn't about being the biggest or the loudest or the most aggressive. It's about being right when it matters most. Amanda looked at him. That's a mature observation, Staff Sergeant. Ma'am, you were right when it mattered most. You tried to warn us about the threat, you tried to prevent casualties, and when we wouldn't listen, you put your own life at risk to save ours. That's what military personnel do for each other. Ma'am, respectfully, that's what exceptional military personnel do. Most of us just follow orders and hope for the best. Rodriguez sat down on the other end of the bench. Ma'am, can I ask you something personal? You can ask. Do you regret leaving combat operations? Amanda thought about the question. 3 years of medical work, hundreds of lives saved through healing instead of through violence. But also 3 years of hiding who she really was, pretending to be someone less capable than she actually was. I regret that leaving was necessary, but I don't regret the choice to focus on saving lives. What made it necessary? Losing my entire team in Ukraine, realizing that no matter how good I was at killing the enemy, I couldn't protect the people I cared about most. Rodriguez nodded slowly. That's a heavy burden to carry. It's the burden every operator carries. The question is whether you let it define you or whether you use it to make better decisions. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the sun disappear behind the trees. Other personnel moved around the base, conducting the routine business of military life, unaware that major decisions were being made on a bench outside the medical facility. Ma'am, Rodriguez said finally, whatever you decide about your future, I want you to know that you've changed how I think about leadership and respect and competence. How so? I used to think that respect was something you demanded based on rank or position. Now I understand that respect is something you earn through competence and character. That's a good lesson to learn, Staff Sergeant. Ma'am, if you decide to stay in tactical operations, I'd be honored to serve under your command. Amanda looked at him with surprise. Staff Sergeant, you're a Navy SEAL. I'm a Marine. Cross-service assignments are complicated. Ma'am, competence is competence, regardless of service branch. Rodriguez stood up and prepared to leave. Ma'am, thank you for saving my team today. And thank you for teaching me something important about leadership. After he left, Amanda remained on the bench, thinking about competence and character, and the choices people make when faced with difficult decisions. Her radio crackled with routine-based communications, medical updates, and administrative messages, the normal sounds of military life continuing despite the day's dramatic events. Her secure phone buzzed with a text message from Captain Wong. JSOC on secure line, need answer by 0800 tomorrow. Amanda looked at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some decisions couldn't be rushed, even when external pressures demanded immediate answers. The medical facility was still operational, with night shift personnel caring for routine patients and processing medical supplies. Amanda walked inside and checked on the status of equipment and supplies, a routine she had followed every evening for 3 years. Evening, Miss Parker, said Hospital Corpsman First Class Johnson. Heard you had some excitement today. Evening, Petty Officer Johnson. Just doing my job. Yes, ma'am. Though I'm hearing your job description might be changing. Amanda smiled. Military bases were notorious for gossip and speculation. By tomorrow, there would be a dozen different versions of the day's events circulating through the ranks. We'll see what happens, Petty Officer. Amanda completed her routine inspection and headed toward her quarters. But instead of going inside, she walked to the base perimeter and looked out into the jungle, where hours earlier she'd been hunting professional killers with the same skills she'd hoped never to use again. Chief Matthews appeared beside her at the fence line. Ma'am, couldn't sleep either? Too much to process, Chief. Ma'am, can I share something with you? Go ahead. I've been in the military for 22 years. I've served with a lot of different people in a lot of different situations. Today was the first time I've seen someone sacrifice their personal safety for complete strangers without hesitation. Chief, that's what military personnel are trained to do. Ma'am, respectfully, that's what military personnel are supposed to do. Most of us hope we never get tested. You got tested and passed with flying colors. Amanda appreciated the sentiment, but she wasn't sure she agreed with the assessment. Chief, I was just doing what needed to be done. Ma'am, that's exactly what I mean. When 8 Marines were about to die, you didn't hesitate, you didn't calculate risk versus benefit, you didn't worry about your cover identity or your civilian status. You just did what needed to be done. Matthews looked out into the jungle. Ma'am, whatever you decide about your future assignment, the Corps would be lucky to have you back in any capacity. Thank you, Chief. After Matthews left, Amanda remained at the perimeter fence, thinking about duty and sacrifice and the different ways people serve their country. Medical personnel served by healing, combat personnel served by fighting. But sometimes the distinction wasn't as clear as she'd hoped. Her secure phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Colonel Harrison. Gunnery Sergeant Parker, request your presence at 0700 for administrative review. Bring personal effects and official documentation. Amanda realized that her decision deadline had effectively been moved up. Tomorrow morning, she would have to choose between returning to combat operations or finding some other way to serve. She walked back to her quarters and began organizing her personal effects. 3 years of civilian life fit into 2 duffel bags and a footlocker. Not much to show for attempting to change her life completely. But the real question wasn't about possessions or living arrangements. The real question was about identity and purpose, and whether it was possible to change who you fundamentally were. Amanda pulled out a small wooden box she'd kept hidden in her footlocker. Inside were medals, commendations, and photographs from her previous life as an operator, faces of teammates who hadn't made it home from Ukraine, documentation of missions that had saved lives by taking other lives. She looked at the photographs for a long time, remembering people who'd trusted her with their lives and who'd died despite her best efforts to protect them. Good Marines who'd followed her into impossible situations because they believed in her competence and leadership. The same kind of trust Rodriguez and his team had placed in her today when they followed her into the jungle to face professional killers. Amanda closed the wooden box and put it back in the footlocker. Some decisions couldn't be made based on past events. They had to be made based on present realities and future responsibilities. At 0630 hours, Amanda reported to Colonel Harrison's office with her personal effects and official documentation. Captain Wong was present, along with a personnel specialist she didn't recognize. Gunnery Sergeant Parker, Colonel Harrison said formally, we're here to discuss your administrative status and future assignment options. Sir, understood. Before we proceed, do you have any questions or concerns about your options? Amanda had spent most of the night thinking about questions and concerns. The biggest concern was whether she could transition back to combat operations without losing the perspective she'd gained from 3 years of medical work. Sir, if I return to tactical operations, would there be opportunities to maintain medical responsibilities? Absolutely. Your combination of combat and medical experience is extremely valuable for special operations support. What about training responsibilities? Captain Wong answered. We've been discussing the possibility of establishing a new program for personnel who might face unconventional threats. Your experience would be essential for developing appropriate training protocols. What would that involve? Teaching other personnel to recognize sophisticated threats, respond to coordinated attacks, and integrate medical support with tactical operations. Amanda processed this information. Training others would mean sharing the hard-won knowledge that had kept her alive for 8 years of combat operations. But it would also mean influencing how future operations were conducted, potentially preventing the kind of mistakes that had nearly killed Reaper 7. Sir, would I be training only military personnel, or would the program include support staff and contractors? Why do you ask? Sir, today's events demonstrated that support personnel often have access to critical intelligence that tactical personnel might overlook. Training should include everyone who might encounter or recognize threats. Colonel Harrison nodded approvingly. That's excellent analysis. Yes, the program would include all base personnel. The personnel specialist spoke up. Gunnery Sergeant Parker, there's one additional consideration. Your civilian identity has been compromised, but we can establish new cover documentation if you prefer to maintain some separation between your military and civilian activities. What kind of separation? You would be officially assigned to tactical operations, but your day-to-day duties could focus on medical support and training. Essentially, you'd be a medical officer with tactical specialization rather than a tactical operator with medical training. Amanda considered the distinction. Medical officer with tactical specialization would allow her to continue saving lives while using her combat experience to prevent future casualties. It was a compromise that might satisfy both her personal values and the military's operational requirements. Sir, that option sounds acceptable. Excellent. Captain Wong will coordinate the administrative details. Amanda stood up to leave, but Colonel Harrison stopped her. Gunnery Sergeant, one more thing. Sir, your actions yesterday prevented what could have been a significant tactical defeat and loss of life. The entire base personnel owe you their thanks. Sir, I was just doing my job. Yes, you were, and you did it exceptionally well. Amanda left the administrative building and walked across the base toward the medical facility. But this time, she was walking as Gunnery Sergeant Parker, medical officer with tactical specialization, rather than Amanda Parker, civilian contractor. The medical facility was busy with morning routine, shift changes, equipment checks, patient care, and supply management. Amanda arrived at her workstation and found a stack of new documentation waiting for her. Morning, Gunnery Sergeant, Hospital Corpsman Johnson said with obvious pride. Heard about your new assignment? Morning, Petty Officer. Same job, different title. Ma'am, respectfully, I think it's a lot more than just a different title. Amanda looked around the medical facility at personnel, who were now treating her with obvious respect and admiration. The change in atmosphere was dramatic and slightly uncomfortable. Petty Officer, I hope everyone understands that good medical care is still the primary mission of this facility. Yes, ma'am, but it's good to know that our medical personnel can handle other situations if necessary. Amanda sat down at her workstation and began reviewing patient charts and supply inventories. The routine work was comforting after the previous day's intensity, but she was aware that her routine would be expanding significantly in the coming weeks. Her secure phone buzzed with a message from Captain Wong. First training session scheduled for next Monday. 15 personnel from various departments. Topic: threat recognition and emergency response procedures. Amanda replied with a simple acknowledgement, but internally she was already planning the curriculum. Threat recognition required understanding enemy capabilities and tactics. Emergency response required both medical skills and tactical awareness. It was exactly the kind of integrated training that could prevent future situations like the Reaper 7 ambush. Rodriguez appeared at her workstation at mid-morning, carrying official paperwork and wearing a subdued expression. Ma'am, I'm here to deliver my administrative counseling paperwork. Amanda accepted the documents and reviewed them quickly. Formal counseling for failure to properly evaluate intelligence, mandatory training on inter-service cooperation, and assignment to the new threat recognition training program. Staff Sergeant, these administrative actions seem appropriate. Ma'am, I agree completely. I also wanted to inform you that I've requested assignment as your assistant instructor for the training program. Amanda looked up from the paperwork with surprise. Staff Sergeant, that's not necessary. Ma'am, respectfully, I think it is necessary. I made mistakes that nearly got people killed, and I want to help ensure other personnel don't make the same mistakes. What does your command think about that request? Ma'am, my command supports any training that improves operational effectiveness and reduces casualties. Amanda considered Rodriguez's request. Having him as an assistant instructor would provide credibility with SEAL personnel who might otherwise dismiss training from a Marine. It would also demonstrate that learning from mistakes was more important than protecting egos. Staff Sergeant, request approved, but understand that my training standards are extremely high. Ma'am, I would expect nothing less. Rodriguez left to coordinate with his command, and Amanda returned to her medical duties. But she was increasingly aware that her role was expanding beyond traditional medical responsibilities. At noon, Amanda received a visit from Chief Matthews and several other senior NCOs. Ma'am, Chief Matthews said, request permission to speak freely about the new training program. Permission granted, Chief. Ma'am, the senior enlisted personnel have been discussing ways to support the training program and ensure maximum effectiveness. What kind of support? Ma'am, we'd like to volunteer our personnel for realistic training scenarios. We think the training would be more effective if it included hands-on exercises rather than just classroom instruction. Amanda appreciated the suggestion. Realistic training scenarios would definitely improve learning outcomes, but they would also require significant planning and coordination. Chief, realistic scenarios would involve potential safety risks and resource requirements. Are your commands prepared for that level of commitment? Ma'am, our commands are very interested in any training that improves our ability to recognize and respond to sophisticated threats. What about personnel availability? Ma'am, we've discussed rotating personnel through the training on a voluntary basis initially, then expanding to mandatory training if the program proves effective. Amanda nodded. Chief, that sounds like a solid approach. Can you coordinate with Captain Wong to develop a preliminary schedule? Yes, ma'am. The senior NCOs left to begin coordinating training support, and Amanda realized that her new role was generating enthusiasm throughout the base. Personnel were recognizing the value of integrated training that combined medical, tactical, and intelligence capabilities. Her secure phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from JSOC headquarters. Request video conference at 1600 hours to discuss expanded training program implementation at additional facilities. Amanda stared at the message for several minutes. JSOC interest meant that the training program could expand beyond Joint Operating Base Alpha to other locations facing similar threats. It meant her expertise would influence how the entire military approached unconventional threat recognition, but it also meant increased responsibilities and visibility that would make it impossible to maintain any semblance of her previous civilian life. Amanda replied with acceptance of the conference request and began preparing briefing materials for senior leadership review. The documentation process was familiar from her previous assignments, but the stakes seemed higher now. Success could improve security for thousands of military personnel. Failure could result in preventable casualties. At 15:45 hours, Amanda joined the secure video conference with JSOC leadership. Colonel Harrison and Captain Wong participated from the base conference room, while Amanda provided technical briefing from her medical workstation. "Gunnery Sergeant Parker," the JSOC commander said, "your successful counter-Spetsnaz operation has generated significant interest at the highest levels. We understand you're developing training programs to share your expertise." "Sir, that's correct. The program focuses on threat recognition, emergency response, and integration of medical support with tactical operations. How soon could such training be implemented at additional locations?" Amanda calculated quickly. Training development, instructor certification, resource requirements, and quality control measures. It was a complex undertaking that required careful planning. "Sir, preliminary implementation could begin within 60 days if adequate resources and personnel are provided. Full implementation would require approximately 6 months for comprehensive program development." "What resources would be required?" "Sir, qualified instructors, realistic training facilities, specialized equipment for hands-on exercises, and administrative support for curriculum development and student evaluation." "Personnel requirements?" "Sir, minimum team of 4 instructors per location, with additional subject matter experts available for consultation as needed." The JSOC commander consulted with other participants off-screen, then returned his attention to the conference. "Gunnery Sergeant Parker, you're authorized to develop comprehensive training program specifications for implementation at 12 locations. Timeline for initial deployment is 90 days. Amanda felt a moment of vertigo. 12 locations meant training hundreds of instructors who would train thousands of personnel. It was a massive undertaking that would influence military operations for years to come. "Sir, understood. I'll coordinate with Captain Wong to develop implementation timeline and resource requirements." "Outstanding. One additional item. You're being considered for promotion to major with assignment as program director. Are you interested in expanded responsibilities?" Amanda looked at Colonel Harrison and Captain Wong, both of whom were nodding encouragingly. "Major Parker, program director, training the entire military to recognize and respond to sophisticated threats." It was the opposite of the quiet civilian life she'd been attempting to build, but it was also an opportunity to prevent the kind of casualties she'd seen in Ukraine and nearly seen with Reaper 7. "Sir, I'm honored by the consideration and would be pleased to serve in whatever capacity best supports mission requirements." "Excellent. Promotion paperwork will be expedited. Congratulations, Major Parker." The conference ended with coordination instructions and timeline requirements. Amanda closed her laptop and sat quietly for several minutes, processing the dramatic changes in her life trajectory. Major Parker, program director, responsible for training personnel at 12 military installations to recognize and respond to sophisticated threats. 3 days ago, she'd been an anonymous medical contractor hoping to hide from her past. Now she was being promoted to senior officer status with responsibilities that would shape future military operations. Captain Wong appeared at her workstation. "Congratulations, Major." "Thank you, Captain, though I'm still processing the implications." "Amanda, This is exactly what the military needs. Someone with your combination of tactical experience, medical expertise, and training capabilities. I hope you're right. I know I'm right, and more importantly, you know you're right. Otherwise, you wouldn't have accepted the responsibilities. Amanda looked around the medical facility that had been her refuge for 3 years. Tomorrow, it would become the development center for training programs that would influence military operations worldwide. Wong, do you think people can really change who they fundamentally are? I think people can choose how to express who they fundamentally are. You've always been someone who protects others and saves lives. Now you're just doing it on a larger scale. Rodriguez appeared in the medical facility with several other SEAL team members. They approached Amanda's workstation with formal bearing but obvious enthusiasm. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said, "request permission to congratulate you on your promotion and express gratitude for your leadership. Thank you, Staff Sergeant. Ma'am, the team wanted to know if you'd be willing to conduct some informal training sessions while you're developing the formal program. What kind of informal sessions? Ma'am, practical exercises in threat recognition, emergency medical procedures under stress, and coordination between different specialties." Amanda looked at the assembled SEALs, professional operators who were eager to learn from someone they now recognized as more experienced than themselves. "Staff Sergeant, coordinate with Chief Matthews to develop training schedule. But understand that my standards for practical exercises will be extremely demanding. Ma'am, we wouldn't expect anything less." After the SEALs left, Amanda returned to her routine medical duties for the remainder of the afternoon. Patient care, supply management, equipment maintenance, the fundamental work of keeping people healthy and operational. But she was increasingly aware that her routine would be changing dramatically in the coming weeks. Training development, instructor certification, program implementation, responsibilities that would take her far from the quiet medical work she'd been using to hide from her past. At 1800 hours, Amanda completed her medical duties and walked to the base perimeter for her evening routine. The same bench where she'd sat with Rodriguez, the same fence line where she'd talked with Chief Matthews, the same view of the jungle where she'd proven that some skills never really go away. Her secure phone buzzed with a message from her former team commander in Ukraine. "Heard through channels about your recent activities. Proud of you for finding a way to serve that honors both your combat experience and your desire to heal instead of harm." Amanda stared at the message for a long time. Her former commander understood the struggle between warrior identity and healer identity because he'd faced similar choices after losing personnel under his command. She replied with a simple acknowledgement, but the message reinforced her growing understanding that the choice wasn't between being a warrior and being a healer. The choice was between using warrior skills for destruction and using warrior skills for protection. Training personnel to recognize and respond to sophisticated threats was definitely protection. Teaching medical procedures under combat conditions was definitely healing. Leading operations that prevented casualties was definitely service. Maybe Captain Wong was right. Maybe people couldn't change who they fundamentally were, but they could choose how to express their fundamental nature. Amanda looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring new responsibilities, new challenges, and new opportunities to serve in ways that honored both her combat experience and her medical training. For the first time in 3 years, she was looking forward to tomorrow instead of trying to hide from yesterday. At 2100 hours, Amanda returned to her quarters and began planning the training program that would occupy the next phase of her life. Curriculum development, instructor qualification standards, resource requirements, evaluation criteria, all the elements needed to share hard-won knowledge with people who would face similar threats in the future. Her personal effects were still packed in duffel bags from the morning's administrative review, but Amanda decided to leave them packed for now. Major Parker would probably require different living arrangements than Amanda Parker, medical contractor. She pulled out the wooden box containing medals, commendations, and photographs from her previous life. But this time, instead of looking at them with regret for lost teammates, she looked at them with determination to honor their sacrifice through teaching others to survive similar situations. Amanda placed one photograph on her desk, her 12-man team from Ukraine, taken 2 weeks before the mission that had killed 11 of them. Good Marines who had trusted her leadership and who deserved to be remembered for their service and sacrifice. Tomorrow, she would begin developing training that would help prevent other teams from suffering similar losses. It was a way of serving that honored both the warriors she'd lost and the healer she'd become. Amanda closed the wooden box and placed it in her footlocker, but she left the photograph on her desk where she could see it while working on training development. Some people serve by taking lives to protect others. Some people serve by saving lives to help others. And some people, if they're very lucky, find ways to do both. Amanda Parker had found her way to do both. At 0600 hours the next morning, Amanda reported to her expanded workstation in the medical facility. Her desk now included secure communications equipment, training development materials, and administrative support for program implementation. Hospital Corpsman Johnson approached with obvious excitement. "Morning, Major Parker. Congratulations on your promotion." "Morning, Petty Officer. Thank you." "Ma'am, the medical staff wanted you to know that we're honored to have you continue working with us, even with your expanded responsibilities." "Petty Officer, medical support remains a primary mission. The training program will enhance our capabilities, not replace them." Amanda began her morning routine by reviewing patient status and supply requirements, but she also began reviewing training program specifications and instructor qualification standards. Her secure phone buzzed with messages from 3 different military installations requesting information about threat recognition training. Word was spreading quickly through military channels about the successful counter-Spetsnaz operation and the training program being developed to share those capabilities. Captain Wong appeared at her workstation with personnel assignments and resource allocation documents. "Major Parker, your instructor team selections have been approved." "Who did we get?" "Staff Sergeant Rodriguez as Assistant Instructor for Tactical Operations, Chief Matthews as Senior Enlisted Advisor, Hospital Corpsman First Class Johnson as Medical Training Coordinator, and 4 additional specialists from Intelligence and Communications." That's a good team. They're excited about the opportunity to contribute to program development. Amanda reviewed the personnel files and training schedules. Good people with complementary skills who understood the importance of integrated training that combined multiple specialties. "Wong, what's the timeline for first full training exercise?" 2 weeks for curriculum development, 2 weeks for instructor certification, then first full exercise with 30 personnel from various departments. That's aggressive. That's necessary. JSOC wants to see results quickly so they can implement the program at other locations. Amanda nodded and began organizing her training development priorities. Threat recognition required understanding enemy capabilities and tactics. Emergency response required medical skills and tactical coordination. Leadership under stress required confidence and competence developed through realistic exercises. Rodriguez appeared at her workstation at 0800 hours, carrying training materials and wearing the focused expression of someone ready to work hard. "Morning, Major Parker. Ready to begin instructor development?" "Morning, Staff Sergeant. Are you prepared for intensive training over the next 4 weeks?" "Ma'am, I'm prepared for whatever training is necessary to ensure this program succeeds." Amanda looked at Rodriguez carefully. The same man who'd been humiliating her a week ago was now committed to learning from her and helping develop training that would prevent future casualties. "Staff Sergeant, what changed your perspective about competence and leadership?" "Ma'am, watching you save my team's lives while maintaining professional standards despite my unprofessional behavior. That taught me more about leadership than 8 years of military experience." "What specifically did you learn?" "Ma'am, I learned that real leadership is about competence, character, and commitment to mission success, regardless of personal considerations." Amanda nodded approvingly. "That's a good foundation for instructor development. Let's begin with threat recognition principles." Over the next 2 weeks, Amanda worked with her instructor team to develop comprehensive training materials that integrated tactical, medical, and intelligence capabilities. The curriculum was demanding, realistic, and designed to prepare personnel for sophisticated threats they might face in various operational environments. The first full training exercise was conducted with 30 volunteers from different departments: medical personnel, intelligence analysts, communications specialists, security forces, and support staff. All participated in scenarios that required coordinated response to complex threats. The exercise began with classroom instruction on threat recognition and emergency response procedures, but the real learning occurred during practical exercises that simulated coordinated attacks by professional enemy forces. Amanda watched the training participants work through scenarios that required them to identify threats, coordinate responses, provide medical support under stress, and maintain communications during crisis situations. The integrated approach produced better results than traditional training that separated different specialties. Rodriguez proved to be an effective assistant instructor, particularly for tactical training that required understanding both SEAL capabilities and joint operations with other services. His personal experience with the consequences of poor threat recognition gave his instruction additional credibility. Chief Matthews coordinated senior enlisted participation and ensured that training standards remained high throughout the exercise. His 22 years of military experience helped bridge differences between services and specialties. Hospital Corpsman Johnson developed medical training scenarios that required personnel to provide emergency care while maintaining situational awareness and tactical security. The combination of medical skills and tactical awareness proved challenging but essential. The first full exercise concluded with an after-action review that identified strengths, weaknesses, and areas for improvement. Overall, participants demonstrated significant improvement in threat recognition, emergency response, and cross-functional coordination. Major Parker, Colonel Harrison said during the final briefing, "This training program exceeds expectations. The integrated approach produces capabilities that none of our previous training achieved. Sir, the credit belongs to the instructor team and the participants who embrace challenging training standards. The credit belongs to your vision for combining tactical and medical capabilities in realistic training scenarios." Amanda reviewed the training evaluation reports and participant feedback. The results were encouraging, but she was already identifying improvements for future iterations of the program. Her secure phone buzzed with messages from JSOC headquarters and other military installations. The successful training exercise had generated requests for immediate program implementation at 6 additional locations. "Major Parker," Captain Wong said, "JSOC wants to accelerate the implementation timeline. They're requesting program deployment within 60 days instead of 90. That's possible if we have adequate instructor teams and resources at each location. What do you need for accelerated deployment?" Amanda calculated quickly. "Instructor training, equipment requirements, facility preparation, and quality control measures for 6 simultaneous implementations. I need 12 additional instructors, specialized training equipment for 6 locations, and administrative support for curriculum standardization and student evaluation." Approved. JSOC considers this program essential for current threat environment. Amanda looked around the medical facility that had become the development center for training that would influence military operations worldwide. Good people working on important problems with resources and support necessary for success. 3 weeks later, Amanda stood in front of personnel from Joint Operating Base Alpha who had completed the full training program. Medical staff, tactical operators, intelligence analysts, communications specialists, and support personnel who now understood how to recognize sophisticated threats and coordinate effective responses. "Ladies and gentlemen," Amanda said, "the training you've completed prepares you for threats that most military personnel have never faced. But preparation is only valuable if applied correctly when situations require it." She looked around the assembled personnel, recognizing faces that had become familiar over the past month of intensive training. The most important lesson from this training isn't about specific tactics or procedures. It's about the importance of professional competence, mutual respect, and coordinated response regardless of rank, service, or specialty. Rodriguez raised his hand. "Ma'am, how do we maintain these capabilities when personnel rotate to other assignments?" "Excellent question, Staff Sergeant. The program includes refresher training every 6 months and certification requirements for personnel assigned to high-risk locations." Chief Matthews asked, "Ma'am, what's the next phase of program development?" "Chief, the next phase involves implementing similar training at 11 additional locations, training instructor teams, and developing advanced scenarios based on emerging threats." Amanda concluded the briefing and watched personnel return to their normal duties, but she knew they were returning with enhanced capabilities that could prevent casualties and save lives in future operations. Her secure phone buzzed with a message from her former team commander in Ukraine. "Saw the training reports through official channels. You found a way to honor fallen teammates while protecting future ones. They would be proud." Amanda looked at the photograph on her desk, her 12-man team from Ukraine, good Marines who had trusted her leadership and who deserved to be remembered through training that would prevent other teams from suffering similar losses. Major Amanda Parker, program director, responsible for training that would influence military operations worldwide. It wasn't the quiet civilian life she'd attempted to build, but it was service that honored both her combat experience and her desire to heal instead of harm. At 1700 hours, Amanda completed her administrative duties and walked to the base perimeter for her evening routine. The same bench, the same view, but everything else had changed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as the training program expanded to additional locations. More personnel to train, more instructors to certify, more scenarios to develop, but also more opportunities to prevent casualties and save lives through sharing hard-won knowledge. Amanda looked up at the stars and thought about service and sacrifice and the different ways people contribute to something larger than themselves. Some people serve by taking lives to protect others. Some people serve by giving lives to help others. And some people find ways to do both through teaching others to protect themselves. Her secure phone buzzed with one final message of the day. Major Parker, JSOC Commander requests your presence at Pentagon briefing next month to discuss program expansion to international allied forces. Amanda stared at the message, processing the implications of international program expansion. Allied forces facing similar threats, training standardization across multiple militaries, coordination requirements that would influence military cooperation for years to come. She replied with acceptance and began planning for responsibilities that would take her far beyond Joint Operating Base Alpha. But regardless of where the program expanded, the fundamental mission remained the same, sharing knowledge that could prevent casualties and save lives. Amanda returned to her quarters and began organizing materials for the next phase of program development: curriculum modifications, instructor training standards, international coordination requirements, all the elements needed for expanding successful training to additional organizations facing sophisticated threats. The scope of what she was building became clearer as she spread documents across her small desk: training manuals that would be translated into multiple languages, assessment protocols that would need to account for different military cultures and operational doctrines, instructor certification standards that would maintain quality while accommodating various national training systems. Amanda opened her laptop and began drafting preliminary requirements for international program implementation. Allied forces from NATO countries had expressed interest in threat recognition training that integrated medical and tactical capabilities. Partner nations facing similar unconventional warfare challenges wanted access to proven methodologies for counterinsurgency operations. Each expansion represented hundreds of military personnel who would gain capabilities that could save their lives and the lives of their teammates. The mathematics of impact were compelling. Every instructor trained would teach dozens of students, who would carry those skills to new assignments and share them with additional personnel. She paused in her planning to consider the unexpected trajectory of her life. 6 months ago, she had been content with anonymity, processing medical supplies and avoiding attention. The transformation from hiding her capabilities to leveraging them for maximum impact had happened faster than she could have imagined. The irony wasn't lost on her that running away from her warrior identity had led to a position where those warrior skills could protect more people than ever before. Teaching threat recognition prevented ambushes. Training emergency medical procedures saved lives during combat operations. Developing leadership capabilities under stress improved decision-making when lives hung in the balance. Amanda pulled out a fresh notebook and began sketching organizational charts for international program structure. Regional training centers would need local coordinators who understood both military doctrine and cultural considerations. Mobile training teams could provide instruction at remote locations where personnel couldn't travel to established facilities. Advanced scenario development would require input from intelligence specialists familiar with emerging threats in different geographical areas. The complexity was daunting, but manageable with proper planning and adequate resources. JSOC had demonstrated commitment to providing both, recognizing that investment in training prevented much more expensive consequences during actual operations. Her secure communications device displayed messages from potential international partners requesting detailed program information. Military attachés, training commandants, and special operations coordinators from allied nations wanted to understand how integrated medical tactical training could enhance their existing capabilities. Amanda began drafting response templates that provided sufficient detail to generate interest while maintaining operational security requirements. The challenge was explaining sophisticated training concepts to personnel who might not have experience with unconventional warfare scenarios. She stood up and walked to the small window overlooking the base perimeter. The same jungle that had nearly claimed 8 American lives now represented the laboratory where life-saving training had been developed and tested. The transition from battlefield to classroom demonstrated how combat experience could be transformed into educational value. Her personal effects remained packed in duffel bags, but Amanda now understood that geographical location mattered less than mission impact. Whether she was stationed at Pentagon headquarters, regional training centers, or forward operating bases, the work would involve the same fundamental challenge: translating hard-won battlefield knowledge into accessible training that prepared others for survival. The photograph of her Ukraine teammates remained on her desk, but Amanda no longer looked at it with regret for lives lost. Instead, she saw it as motivation for lives that could be saved through proper training and preparation. Their sacrifice had taught her lessons that were now being shared with personnel who might face similar situations. Amanda returned to her planning materials with renewed focus. International program expansion would require coordination with defense ministries, standardization of training protocols, and development of assessment methods that accounted for different operational environments. Her personal effects were still packed in duffel bags, but Amanda realized she might not be unpacking them at Joint Operating Base Alpha. Major Parker, program director, would probably be assigned to locations where her expertise could have maximum impact on military training and readiness. But, regardless of where she was assigned, Amanda would continue serving in ways that honored both the warriors she'd lost and the healer she'd become. Training that prevented casualties was definitely protection. Medical procedures that saved lives was definitely healing. Leadership that improved military capabilities was definitely service. Amanda Parker had found her way to serve by combining warrior skills with healer values. It was exactly what the military needed, exactly what she was qualified to provide, and exactly what honored the memory of teammates who had trusted her leadership and sacrifice. Honor served. Training begins at 0700 hours.
These stories and